The train is one of the greatest symbols of industrial civilization. Its invention and evolution perfectly mirrored every major technological revolution in modern human history. In the early 1800s, people were still riding railcars powered by sheer manpower. Then came the coal-powered steam engine, transforming heat into mechanical power. By the early 20th century, diesel engines took over, and today, sleek electric trains dominate the tracks. With each leap in tech, train travel became faster and more comfortable. But while the trains themselves were driven by science and engineering, the food served on board train meals evolved through a mix of culture, business, and a whole lot of trial and error. So today, let's take a ride through more than 200 years of railroad history and see how train food, one of the most iconic parts of rail travel, grew and changed, especially in the United States, with heavy influence from Europe. The early days, a rough ride and hungry passengers. In the early 19th century, eating a proper meal on a train was just a fantasy. Passengers rode in open-air cars, exposed to the elements, shaking and rattling over tracks. Thick clouds of black smoke from the steam engine would blow straight into your face. Fortunately, steam trains had to stop often to refill water and cool, which gave passengers brief moments to grab food. Local vendors would hop aboard to sell snacks and sweets, or travelers could dash off to nearby tea houses or food stalls and wolf something down in 10 minutes or less. But this setup had problems. The food vendors didn't care much about quality or reputation. They'd probably never see the same customer twice. Some even teamed up with train staff to scam passengers. The train crew would announce departure early, forcing diners to abandon their meals and run back to the train. The staff would then quietly resell those same dishes to the next unlucky customers. So, for a long time, the smartest option was to bring your own lunchbox. A game changer, the Fred Harvey Company. That all changed in the 1870s when Fred Harvey came on the scene. His company revolutionized train dining by opening a chain of restaurants specifically designed for rail travelers. They were classy. Each restaurant had spotless linen tablecloths, fine china, glassware, and elegant interiors, some even designed by leading architects of the time. Many of these Harvey houses became local landmarks. But Harvey didn't just focus on food. He made the entire dining experience feel refined. One of his biggest innovations, the Harvey girls, young, unmarried women trained to serve in the restaurants. Dressed in crisp black dresses and white aprons, they were professional, polite, and well-paid, bringing a touch of charm and grace to each meal. They became so iconic that they were romanticized in American pop culture, and yes, many of them really did marry their favorite customers. Still, even with all their success, there was one big limitation. Passengers had to disembark and eat at the station while the train stopped. Enter the dining car. That all changed in the late 1800s, thanks to George Pullman, who introduced a corridor system that allowed passengers to walk between train cars. Suddenly, the idea of eating on the train became possible. By the turn of the 20th century, the dining car was born. These train kitchens were tiny, about 8 feet wide and 18 feet long, but staffed by a team of chefs who cooked fresh meals for up to 36 passengers. At the time, major railroad companies were fiercely competing to attract wealthy customers, so they spared no expense in hiring top-tier chefs and offering gourmet-level food. Trains had a unique advantage: mobility. They could source fresh ingredients from all over the country, and that gave birth to some legendary railway dishes. Iconic railroad dishes. Take the giant baked potato, for example. It became the signature dish of the Northern Pacific Railway. These enormous spuds came from Yakima farms in Washington state. Some weighed up to 5 pounds. Since home ovens couldn't cook them evenly, the railroad invented a special rotisserie-style roasting tool to ensure perfect doneness. Another famous creation was the cantaloupe pie. This dessert was inspired by a group of fruit farmers from coastal Texas who shared their melons with the dining car chefs. The recipe: fresh cantaloupe puree mixed with cream, gelatin, orange juice, and sugar, then chilled until firm. No baking required. A hidden hero, Bisquick. But perhaps the most lasting invention to come out of train kitchens was Bisquick. It started with a clever chef who pre-mixed lard, flour, baking powder, and salt into a dough he kept chilled, ready to bake fresh biscuits on demand. A smart supervisor noticed, refined the formula, and eventually created a shelf-stable version using hydrogenated oil. That mix became Bisquick, and Americans have been using it ever since to bake everything from pancakes to pies. It literally reshaped home baking across the country. The fall of train dining. Despite all this progress, train dining couldn't outrun the times. The Great Depression and World War II hit the railroad industry hard. Dining cars, which had always operated at a loss, were among the first to face cuts. Then came the 1950s with airplanes and cars on the rise. Rail travel declined fast. And with it, the golden age of train food slowly faded into history. But those elegant dining cars, Harvey girls, and iconic recipes remain a delicious reminder of a time when the journey was the destination and dinner on a moving train was an experience to remember. When America's first transcontinental railroad was completed in Utah in 1869, Europe's rail systems were still struggling to find their way. Unlike the vast and unified United States, Europe was a patchwork of kingdoms, empires, and republics, each with its own railway regulations, systems, and ambitions. There was no single network, no common rules. But all of that changed thanks to one young man from Belgium, Georges Nagelmackers. Born on June 25, 1845, in the city of Liege, also known as the Fiery City, Nagelmackers came from privilege. His father owned Belgium's oldest private bank, and Georges grew up with every advantage. But the journey that would make him the father of European luxury rail travel began with a personal scandal and a twist of fate. At just 19, Nagelmackers shocked his aristocratic, Catholic family by announcing he wanted to marry his male cousin. This was not only taboo because of their blood relation, but also because it was a same-sex relationship in a deeply conservative era. His father's solution: ship him off to America. Ironically, that exile led Nagelmackers to greatness. An American idea, a European vision. In the United States, young Georges traveled coast to coast for 10 months. Along the way, he discovered the concept of the sleeper car, train where people could eat and sleep while traveling long distances. As a trained civil engineer, he immediately saw the future in this idea. But he also saw its flaws. American sleeper trains, at the time, were crude and cramped. They had no toilets, no dining spaces, and barely any privacy. Passengers slept on hard wooden bunks, squeezed together with strangers. To a refined European aristocrat, it was barbaric. So, Nagelmackers returned to Europe determined to build something better, something elegant, luxurious, and unmistakably European. At just 25, he founded the Compagnie Internationale des Wagons, the International Sleeping Car Company. Its logo, two regal lions, borrowed from the Belgian royal crest. And for good reason. No private bank would finance his risky idea. Only King Leopold II of Belgium believed in him enough to invest. Luxury on rails, a first-class revolution. From the beginning, Nagelmackers aimed high. His sleeper trains didn't just move people, they pampered them. Each car held only 6 to 20 passengers, making the journey feel exclusive. Every detail was carefully crafted. Smoking and non-smoking sections, a first for trains, full-service kitchens and onboard dining rooms. Fresh ingredients and fine wines loaded before departure. Local delicacies picked up at stations along the way. And an attentive staff trained not just in hospitality but in everything from ticketing to personal security. Even the tableware was a work of art. Nagelmackers hired elite designers to craft custom plates, glasses, and silverware for his train's items so refined, they were practically museum pieces. They even built special pocket watch holders into the dining tables. His trains became known not just for comfort, but for culture. The legend of the Orient Express. After years of success on routes like Ostend to Berlin and Paris to Vienna, Nagelmackers made his boldest move yet. On October 4, 1883, he launched the legendary Orient Express, connecting Paris to Istanbul. But this wasn't just a new train route, it was a masterclass in marketing. He plastered cities with posters showing exotic locations and romanticized Eastern adventures. To ease fears about safety, he even hired fake bandits to stage a mock train robbery on the inaugural ride. They startled passengers with aggressive threats, then pulled out harmonicas and started dancing. The stunt worked. Newspapers around the world covered the event. Another time, when the train broke down near Bucharest, Nagelmackers didn't panic. He led passengers on a spontaneous tour of nearby Romanian castles. What could have been a PR disaster turned into a charming detour. The first journey finally reached Istanbul. For most Westerners, the Ottoman Empire was a land of mystery, its culture, clothing, and customs unlike anything they'd ever seen. But now, thanks to Nagelmackers, They could ride in luxury across national borders and into the heart of the mysterious East. An empire on tracks. The Orient Express was such a hit that the Ottoman Sultan, Abdul Hamid II, had a new train station built in 1890 just to welcome its arrival. 2 years later, the iconic Pura Palace Hotel was completed to accommodate travelers from the Orient Express. And it was in room 411 of that very hotel that Agatha Christie wrote her famous novel Murder on the Orient Express, a story that would forever link crime fiction with luxury train travel. Nagelmackers' company became a railway empire. Over 1,000 sleeper cars, more than 6,000 employees, routes that stretched from Western Europe all the way to Tsarist Russia, North Africa, even Beijing. In fact, the very train car where Germany signed the armistice of 1918 ending World War I belonged to his company. Years later, Hitler forced the French to surrender inside that same car, in an eerie act of revenge. A dark twist of history, but also a testament to the symbolic power of Nagelmackers' trains, the man behind the dream. As for Nagelmackers himself, after building a transcontinental luxury rail empire, his later years were quieter. His only notable personal achievement, winning a gold medal in equestrian driving at the 1900 Paris Olympics. Not bad for a man who was exiled for love and ended up changing the way a continent travels.